Somewhat in the 1980s, the American economy was like any other economy in the world, like German economy or French economy or Japanese economy or Indian economy. And the difference started only thereafter. For example, the American interest rates were about 18% at that time on fixed deposits with the banks. The interest rates were cut down from 18 to 8% in 1990. And it was cut down to 1% in 2001. And what was the reason why the interest rates were cut? And cutting the interest rates became the policy prescription for growth. But see what happens because of the cut in the interest rates. In the year 1980, 81, 82, about 5 to 6% of the American households were investing in stock market. By 1990, when the interest rates were cut to 8%, 25% of the American households began investing in stock market. In the year 2001, 55% of the American households got hooked to the stock market. There was no difference between stock market and households in America by 2001. And in this process, the very culture of the banking, structure of the banking changed from being mere commercial and traditional banking into investment banking. The household savings crashed. Actually, the household savings, which is about 17 to 18% of the GDP in 1980, came down to 8% in 1990. And by 2006, the savings had become negative. The households in America borrowed $112 billion more than their income. With the result, their balance sheet turned negative because of the slash in the interest rate and driving the people into stock market and into housing market based on what is known as home equity. Many people would not have even heard about what is home equity in the terminology. For example, I bought a house by borrowing $30,000 in the year 1960. 1965, the house values were about $30,000. And almost the entire money is lent, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 I may have to invest. The housing finance companies will give about $25,000. And I keep on paying like I pay rent. This is supposed to be one of the models of making people own houses. Instead of paying rent, you are paying installments for owning the houses. So the American mortgage home finance model was recommended for the whole world, and India was one of the countries which was very keenly interested in following this model. But I won't go into why America did it. To come out of the depression, the only way America thought of improving their economy was to make people own houses because they had a huge tract of land. All that was needed was give money so that people can own houses because land was never an issue. That was a very peculiar American specific solution which was suggested in 1930s and it was continued later. But a necessity was turned into an investment. Housing became like stock. So in 2000, when the dot-com collapse took place, the American economy had a double attack. One from the dot-com collapse, and in 2001, it had the terror attack. It was at that time the American policymakers took a decision, and they took the greatest risk that any policymaker could have thought of, that is to slash the interest rate and make the people borrow and spend. And spend on what? Bill Clinton, who was the former president of the United States of America, was drafted into leading a movement, Shop for America movement. That is, Americans were told, if you have to come out of this crisis, if the nation has to be saved, you have to go and shop, borrow money and shop, and the banks will give you money free, and all that you have to show is that you own a house and the value of the houses have gone up. And how the value of the houses go up? Creating artificial demand for houses. The value of the existing houses went up, and everybody felt he was rich, and he began borrowing money and spending. And where to borrow this money because the nation is not saving? So the borrowings were from outside. From 1995-96, America began borrowing from the rest of the world for not only financing its trade deficit, but for financing its own internal deficit. So, by 1998, America was borrowing at the rate of 10,000 crores every day. In fact, it used to be said if the rest of the world was refusing to lend money to America, America would not be able to pay the salary to the President of the United States of America. That used to be the joke. But this was commended as a very welcome economic policy. Alan Greenspan, who was the chief of the US Federal Reserve for 18 years, he wrote a book, The Age of Turbulence, in the year 2008. The book was released. And 6 months later, the crisis struck, in which he said, many people say Americans do not save. Many people say Americans borrow money, American government borrows money, American corporates borrow money, American families borrow money. But I don't see any meaning in this argument, because who saves in the world? It is only those countries in which the governments are not enlightened enough to take care of the people. It is they who save. And those people feel insecure. They are in Asia, the governments are not enlightened enough to provide them security of jobs. They are not giving unemployment allowance. They are not giving old age allowance. They are not giving many other kind of social security. And so, those people are forced to save. But we are a country where the government takes care of everything. See, the government takes care of everything is very important, because the government is forced to take care because of the decline in the quality of the families. 51% of the American families are single parent families, headed by the father or the mother, but not the father and the mother living together. 55% of the first marriages end in divorce. 67% of the second marriages end in divorce. 74% of the third marriages end in divorce. 33% of the pregnants are school-going, unwed, school-going girls. Creches are attached where baby children, school-going children carry their babies, deposit them and go to school. This is the decline in the culture and quality of the families. With the result, savings has habit disappeared. Interest rates cut, the families decline in quality. With the result, the government had to take over and ultimately nationalize the families. All the family functions were taken over by the government. Taking care of elders, taking care of infirm people, taking care of unemployed people. With the result, families were nationalized. And government functions were privatized. Business, roads, railways, water supply, municipal supplies, these were privatized. And the largest function, private function, that is the family management, was taken over by them. It's a catastrophic shift in the culture of the United States of America that yielded an economic model for them. And this resulted in their borrowing money. And you see how the consumers borrow money. In 1990, $800 billion. In 2000, $1,700 billion. In 2000, $2,500 billion. In 2008, $2,600 billion. And you know the amount of credit cards in circulation in America? A country of 30 crore population has 120 crore credit cards. The number of credit cards is 1.2 billion. Every American has 9 to 11 credit obligations. With the result, the families got into steep debts. They forgot the savings habit. And as a nation, America did not save. When a nation doesn't save, it has to borrow from the rest of the world. American government was in deficit. American families were in deficit. American trade was in deficit. You know, as late as August 2009, The trade deficit of America was